Are you ready? It is time. Commence. The Legendary Breakdown.
Hey, welcome to another week of the Legendary Breakdown. I am Oldie Oatmeal, aka Braden.
And I'm Zach Cano Crisco.
Our co-host. Okay, so this week we are looking at XCOM Enemy Unknown, a RTS game that is pretty difficult if I'm gonna say so myself. It's fairly difficult.
Yeah,
There
I would
were
say that's an accurate way to describe it.
There were 4 different difficulty categories, and this one was called Impossible, and they weren't joking about how impossible it is.
And then as well, they also had modifiers that you could add from the get-go, which I would imagine significantly increased that difficulty. And obviously, we went straight for it. So, needless to say, was not fun.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is things like your characters can level up. And once they level up, you can choose a class that they can go into. And basically, one of the modifiers was you could make the game randomly choose a class for you.
I think there's one where I'm under the impression that as you level up your characters, their base damage just kind of stays flatline at a certain damage. And based on your distance, I think obviously the closer you are, I think the higher you're technically supposed to hit. But I know the modifier made it so that every time you shot, your damage spread was kind of random. So you could hit the lowest from really close up or the highest from really far away. It just kind of depended on your luck, really.
And the enemies could hit you from literally anywhere. It was pretty ridiculous.
It was absurd. I found that most of the time I felt like I put myself in a good spot to
not get hit.
Like myself in a good spot, yeah. And the next thing you know, you're getting just sniped across the map from some little ray gun. Yeah. And then you're just dead every time.
Before I ask how many deaths, we are going to say that the deaths here is the death of a single character. So you have 4 characters for each mission, 4 different guys that you can move around, and you have, your turn, and then the enemies have their turn, and everything like that. And every time one of those guys dies, we're going to count that as a death. I would say I wiped 5 or 6 times, so I'm in the 20s again.
I think I was close to like 24. I think probably in between 24 and 28, somewhere in there. But it was, and the game's very unforgiving. I feel like as soon as they killed one person on your squad, you might as well just give it up, because you're gonna have to play insanely tactically to kill everyone from there on out.
Although when I beat that first mission, I was with my last person. I only had one person left. She clutched it. And then she died in the next mission, like very quickly.
Yeah, same thing here. I guess what I wasn't ready for is when you play on that hardest difficulty, there's no way to like redo missions and stuff. So you go into a mission with your squad, and if they die, they're gone. Except for the first mission. That's the only one where it'll reset and let you kind of try it over and over until you win, because obviously that's what starts the whole story. So yeah, my guy who leveled up died really quickly in the second mission.
And I was actually pretty surprised how much gameplay there was outside of the missions. Like, you could do things like you had a base that you could upgrade, you got different materials from killing the aliens that let you upgrade your weapons and your armor and all this kind of stuff, and you can upgrade, your characters. You can make spaceships and everything like that. So there was some depth to this game. I was actually pretty surprised how in depth it was.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with only playing a couple hours of it, I would say we barely scratched the surface as far as that's concerned. I feel like I got a good feel for what was available in the game as far as what, like you said, like crafting armor and upgrades and ships and things like that. But I feel like for the people that actually do get really hardcore into that game, I feel like the base is actually, obviously the gameplay is tactical when you're on map and going after the aliens, but I think the biggest thing would make a big difference in the game is that base, is how do you allocate those resources properly to put yourself in a position for more success down the road.
Yeah, because you could do things, I know you had suggested to me when I was playing, to like go forward in time to get upgrades, and then don't go into missions. Just kind of skip a couple of missions, take a crappy review at the first review and everything like that. And I did that.
And what he means by that is, so when you play and you're buying upgrades. I think for like your standard upgrades, it's like 8 to 12 days of in-game, whatever time, however the time is in the game. And then every 30 days, you do like a commission report, basically, where the world is supporting your initiative to fight the aliens. And so if you don't do well, then countries will drop support. So the one thing I guess I am only curious as far as doing that strategy to get those upgrades early on is, does that affect you heavily in the long run?
I think it did
if those
because, well, it seemed that like when you did that, when you didn't go to the next mission, and you didn't play that second mission, it seemed like the enemies advanced still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say that because I know when I dropped in, like out of nowhere, there was these enemies that like exploded and like were poisonous when you killed them. Definitely wasn't ready for that. But what I mean as well is, if let's say you you only do one mission in that first month because you're trying to acquire upgrades, when those countries are dropping their support for your cause, can you like earn their trust back down the road? That's what I wonder, because I think how you gain access to knowledge of alien events happening on other countries is you have to launch satellites. And if those countries aren't in support of your initiative, you can't launch them. So I wonder if you like, maybe you launch one in the country next to it and you help them out, will they like re-support your initiative so that you can kind of launch a satellite into their country as well?
Yeah, I think just simply beating missions will get people to come back to you, because I mean they're pretty desperate.
Yeah, and I guess obviously that's something that if with more time, or maybe if I played it on an easier difficulty at first, just to kind of actually breeze through the story and learn some of the game mechanics, which there are a lot of, and it's very confusing at first. I think obviously I'd have more answers to those questions.
There was definitely a brief adjustment period for this game.
The mechanics for this game are very unlike, I would say, most games that you're going to play on consoles.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think if you consistently play these style of games, then sure, the controls are very familiar probably. But for people that play, kind of a hodgepodge of third-person, first-person shooters, racing games, all kind of a good mix. This control scheme, it makes no sense to people that have never played it before.
I think it was like a slower-paced Knights of the Old Republic, super slow-paced compared to that. More strategy is involved in this game, but that's what I was kind of thinking of it as, because that's also halfway real-time strategy. That's an RTS.
Yeah, it's got elements. Yeah, I mean where this, I think the difference in that is that in those games you actually can like run around.
Yeah. But
then when you get into combat, it's like a Final Fantasy almost.
Yeah.
Where you can run around and then you hit combat and then it goes into turn-based.
Yeah.
Where this is like, even to move your characters across the map is like a turn. The one thing that I figured out after playing a little bit is that you get 2 turns per move, as long as you don't push a character too far out of, like they can run so far and then they can run again to go even farther.
Or
you can just do that from the beginning, but you lose your attacks.
Yeah.
And that was something that took a little bit of adjusting to get used to, because I didn't realize that at first, I guess.
Yeah, when I beat that first mission, there were like, I want to say I sat in Overwatch for like 7 turns in a row, just waiting for the enemies. And I kind of feel like the AI was doing the same thing, and there was a couple of times where I was just like sitting in Overwatch waiting for them to make a move, and they didn't make a move. So I think that was probably because of the impossible thing. Like the computer knew that, okay, you only have one person left, or they're grouped up or something like that, and they didn't want to engage first. Like they wanted you to engage on them.
I would say that hands down the AI in the game they're very intuitive. They're very smart. They don't like, I would say it's hard to trick them or to kind of lure them into doing something that would really give you a huge advantage. Granted, I'm sure there are people out there that have played the game enough or have enough like of a tactician's mindset playing the game that they can do that. But I would say for your standard person kind of walking into it, like playing on the hardest difficulty, they're not going to do what you want them to do. No, they actually they're actually kind of smart. They put themselves in good positions to be successful.
Yeah, and I feel like they know that they have a longer range than you do. Like they can kill you from halfway across the map, and they know that you have to get really close to them. So they're going to stay halfway across the map and just spam shooting at you.
With that being said, though, there is a sniper in the game. Like you can have a loadout of someone who's got a sniper rifle so they can actually shoot at long range. I feel like once you get to that point where you've got kind of a wider weapon set and you actually got some troops that are leveled up and efficient, I think that becomes less of an issue, because now as they kind of retreat and try and keep that distance, you can push forward with your troops that have the close range guns weapons and can withstand a little more damage. And then you just got like a sniper in the back, just kind of picking them off or doing damage as they run away.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see a sniper because with that crutch of you having to be closer to get a better rating to have a better percentage to hit them, I wonder how bad that would affect a sniper. Like, would they even be relevant if that happened?
Yeah, because I actually was looking around at some of the different weapon classes and stuff. Like when you could create characters, I actually looked at some of the different weapon classes that they had. And if you looked at it, the assault rifles and shotguns were like close range weapons, and then they had some like heavy machine guns, which were like mid range weapons, and then a sniper, which was actually like classified as a long range weapon. So I think with those classifications, I think you can, like, instead of having to be, within, maybe a truck's length or something to get a good hit percentage, like they can actually be a significant distance away and still, like, I think when how you can hit R to, I guess, to give you all of your available targets for that character. Right. I think their reach is obviously a lot farther.
Yeah, probably would be. So speaking of the enemies, I know you had said that second mission, when you went into a second mission, there were other enemies. I was actually surprised. There was only like 3 that we saw, and I'm sure there were plenty more. But we only saw 3 enemies, and they were pretty difficult. There was the ones at the very first mission where they could link to each other and like give each other buffs, and those guys were a pain. But once you killed the link, the one that initiated the link, the other one would die. So that was like a tactic that you could get around having to kill the harder enemy.
And that's something that obviously we forewent the tutorial and just kind of struggled through it. But I would imagine that's probably something that they teach you in the tutorial mission in order to give you kind of that advantage. But I agree. Once we figured that out, I think we both had a little bit of an easier time in that first mission because you could prioritize better like who you should be attacking.
But even then, the AI wasn't stupid. Those guys that would be the ones that are giving the buff would kind of stay back farther. It wasn't until I killed a few people in the group that I could actually get to that one that's initiating the link.
Yeah,
so it wasn't a walk in the park at all.
By no means. I agree. They definitely they played tactically as well, and you could tell that the AI like are aware of their weaknesses and ways that you can exploit them. And I think that obviously alters their gameplay as well. I don't know. All in all, I think this is a game that took a lot of adjusting, and this is definitely a game where like you can't jump into the hardest difficulty and just go for it.
I'm actually thinking about getting XCOM 2 because I actually enjoyed this. I think if it wasn't ridiculously impossible, I would have had a much better time.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested to go back and play it on an easier difficulty at first, just to understand kind of the tactics of the game, because I'm sure there's even more to the gameplay itself that we didn't even know about. Obviously everything that we were doing was very surface level, so if they were showing it on the screen as something you could do, then we would do it. I wonder if if we could do buffs and stuff without really knowing it, if some people just kind of have that preset ability.
Well, I'm looking at
I don't know.
I'm looking at the images here on the Xbox console since we're streaming, give the people that aren't watching us a visual, and there's one that has like it's one of your characters and he's flying in the air. He's got this sweet armor and he's got jetpacks on and he's shooting an enemy behind cover. So it's pretty cool. I'm sure there are a bunch of abilities and stuff, but we just didn't get there because we couldn't level up characters. And I think that would have been, if we could have leveled up characters, it would have made things so much easier if they had abilities.
Yes, absolutely. Because what class because I know you had one person that got upgraded and I did as well. What class did you get? So you got a support. I got an assault character, and like the first upgrade you get with that is they can dash, so they can go to their maximum distance if they were to move twice, and then as long as you activate the ability before you do that, you can actually attack people at the end of that movement. So it really increases your range. I just don't know how in that. Go ahead.
The support class was a smoke screen. So if you laid down a smoke screen on yourself, it would make it harder for the enemies to be able to hit you. But I don't know if that had like a repercussion to where if you did it, your guys would have a harder time hitting them. I don't really know. I didn't read it too much because I didn't use it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, it just really wasn't explained. Like how, I guess how it really benefits you. And even still, even after that couple hours, the whole item crafting system to me at that stage just seemed kind of redundant, because all you're doing is maybe giving, a couple of characters an extra 2 bars of health, or maybe you give them the ability to aim a little bit better. But even at that rate, everything that happened in those missions was all luck, just because of those modifiers.
Yeah, because I mean, those enemies would one-shot you. I know the one mission, all of their characters had 4 health, and some of the enemies were hitting us with like 12. I'm like, it's not necessary, man. Come on.
Yeah, it was. I always felt like I was at a disadvantage. Like, I felt like I was at a disadvantage the entire game. I never felt like I never felt confident, I guess, that even being up close and personal with someone, I never felt confident in attacking someone. I was pretty sure I was just going to die.
I agree. I had that feeling as well.
And I guess to me, like, it was to the point where, like, it was getting, like, frustrating, because I felt like everything that was happening was just completely out of my control. You could, even if you did set up things tactically, essentially what you'd have to do is kind of hunker down on one person and have, like, 4 people, all 4 of your people attack it at one time, and just hope that you killed it.
Yeah,
before it had the chance to attack you. I don't know.
Very frustrating. I was very frustrated with this game.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I did enjoy it for it being as frustrating as it was. But do I think I'll go back and play it on the hardest difficulty again? Probably not. I would probably do it without all of those modifiers.
Yeah. I mean, if we had to stream it because people wanted to see it, I would go back and play it on its hardest difficulty. But then again, I would probably play one that you can play with multiplayer, because the original idea was for us to play this together and see what happened, and that didn't work because this has multiplayer but not campaign multiplayer, and we're playing the campaign kind of stuff. But I know
I could see multiplayer being very intense.
Yeah. The second
if you
one,
have a couple of people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, the second one does. I know that I watched on YouTube the XCOM Enemy Within, I think is what it's called, had a 2-player campaign. And I'm going to assume that XCOM 2 has a 2-player campaign as well.
Yeah, that's generally something that once they add it in, it doesn't really go away.
Yeah.
Just because the mechanics are already in place. I think that would change everything. And maybe, I don't know how it would work. Do you know if they do lead 2 teams instead of 1 then?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look that far into it.
Because to me, that would be what would be the most, the biggest difference maker, is if we're trying to lead a charge, you can kind of push up the front, and then I could, have people flank around the sides or something, and really try and corner them in.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would enjoy that. I would enjoy that a lot more, I think.
I don't think they had boss fights. I mean, you could kind of say that No, not really. No, there weren't boss fights. There was just a shit ton of enemies in each level that you had to kill.
Yeah, with that being said, I think the only thing you could kind of consider a boss fight, it's not really, but they would set objectives for you to complete in the mission. So it was always eliminate all aliens, but then also do this.
Yeah.
And I would say that's the closest. It's not even a fight. It's more, it's still an objective, but that was the only thing that I felt made each mission something different, other than just scour the map and kill the enemies.
All right, so since we're talking about missions, I completed 1 and died on 6. Completely failed 6.
I completed 1, and then I took kind of the approach of letting the days play out to get some gear and get some crafting material and stuff, and then I went into a mission that was essentially a month and a half's worth of game time down the road, and just got absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
I thought I was being super tactical, and then this guy just walked in and killed my entire team, and he did that several times.
I wasn't expecting new enemies to be set in, but that second mission I went into, there were the flying guys who could fly right next to you and then just destroy you. And then the third mission I went into had the poison guys, which were annoying because they could run forever, get right next to you, and then one-shot you, or leave 1 health, and then once it's the next player's turn, they die from poison.
With that too, the one thing that you had to keep in mind, because I had the poison enemies on mine as well. With that too, when you killed them, they exploded. So you actually you had to be careful about. Yeah, I don't know if you actually if you were able to figure that out.
Nope.
But when you kill them, they explode poison. So you actually have to be really careful. If you've got someone who you're using to rush them, either to push them backwards or to try and get up close and do a lot of damage. You can't do that if they've only got 1 health, because your person's gonna lose at least 1 health from sitting in the poison for a turn.
That's annoying.
Yeah, it made it really tough, because you couldn't, like I said, you couldn't really rush them, so you had to play them from farther away, or or kind of far away. And then with all those variables of just really not being able to do damage, it just kind of sucked. And can we also touch on the fact that the most annoying game mechanic that they had was the whole like getting panicked thing?
Oh my gosh, yes. Cause like someone in your group would get hit for like a critical 3, and then someone else would be like freaking out, and it's like, honestly, why are you? What did you expect to happen?
And that was my thinking on this. Is it's a game where these soldiers are like alien killing mercenaries basically.
Right.
Why are you freaking out? Like, people are gonna die. Why are you freaking out if someone on your team died? Like, you knew that going into it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. That was frustrating to me because what happens when they get panicked is they freak out and they like run away, or they just like shoot their gun or something, and effectively they end their own turn. You don't get to control them.
And a couple of times they team shot, and I was like, what the fuck, man? That's health I can't afford to lose.
Yeah, I think they just kind of shot like random directions and at random stuff, and if you happen to be in the way, like, you were gonna get hit. And I don't know. I just hated it because you'd have one person die, and if the other 3 people were close enough, they'd all get panicked. They'd lose their turn, and then on the next turn, another person would die. The other 2 would get panicked again. It was just like you almost like had to keep your team separate so that they didn't watch each other die, essentially. But then that puts you at a disadvantage.
Yes, it does. So, how well is the way marked? If we look at the missions, the maps weren't huge. Well, from what we knew, I didn't really explore that much. But once you were in the missions, it would basically tell you, okay, you have to eliminate these enemies and save these people or something like that. And once you get in there, they don't tell you where to go. You just kind of have to figure it out, and then eventually, you'll hear something and it'll, give a marker, okay, we heard something over this way, or you'll just run into the enemies. So there wasn't really direction once you got onto the maps, but you could pretty much...
They would kind of show you where your objective was, though.
Yeah.
They would show you and then just pan back to you really quickly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't really enough to, like, create a strategy, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know. The mission structure was, it's definitely a game that's got actual structure to it. It's not an open world game or anything. It's very, you drop into a mission, you either complete it or you don't, and then it's on to the next one.
Yep. I honestly want to say that with this difficulty being so hard, it wasn't really that strategy. There wasn't really that much strategy to go into it. Like, yeah, you had to think, I can't go right into the enemy, but you can't really get around the enemies either and sneak up on them or something, or get the surprise attack, because A, they don't move, and B, they have huge range of sight where they can just see you coming in. So I don't know. I didn't really like that about it.
And that may just be something that comes with playing the game more, is actually figuring out like how to essentially like flank your team around them without being seen, and then kind of slowly closing in on them from the outside. I don't know. I only beat one mission, and it was the prologue mission, so I feel like even that one compared to the other ones was probably pretty easy, and that was still a really, really tough mission. I would agree. This, with all the modifiers and that difficulty, your entire success in that game just boiled down to like RNG luck, basically.
Okay, I think that pretty much covers most of the stuff. Comparing this, if we try and compare this to Dark Souls, which I think this game, out of all of the games that we've done, is going to be the hardest one to compare, because it's so, the genre is just so much different from that fast-paced, action-packed kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at, to compare it to a Dark Souls kind of game, I guess you could look at, the only thing you can compare is like once you're in the mission, the fact that there's not really any structure to how to complete your objective, in the same way that with Dark Souls, they don't tell you where to go.
But they also don't.
But that's kind of the only thing.
They don't give you an objective either. They just throw you in and make you, you're supposed to go wherever.
Right. Yeah. It is a tough one to compare. For me, I would say what this boils down to as far as like comparing their difficulty is like Dark Souls was difficult, but at the end of the day, I still enjoyed playing it. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was at some point in time, it like what you were doing kind of clicked, and although it was difficult, you had to be careful. You still like could figure out the game itself. And with this one, there was just no elements of that, or at least to me. It was a game where it was just tough, and it didn't matter how you tried to strategize. You probably weren't going to do it.
Here's what my verdict is going to be. I would say that this game would be tougher than Dark Souls if it wasn't so RNG based. Because I feel like it's really RNG based at this difficulty. And I don't think
Yes.
that makes it overall more of a difficult game than Dark Souls.
I would agree with that. I will say that this game was just way more frustrating to play. And to me, that's where I'm kind of gauging how hard the game was, is because, I mean, you know, every game at its highest difficulty it's gonna be difficult and somewhat frustrating. But with this, like, there was just never a time where I wasn't just kind of like pissed off playing the game, because I felt like everything's so, although it's a turn-based game, it's all like read and react to like the real situation that's happening. So you actually have to be really tactical, kind of like on the run. And I feel like it was just something with not really understanding the game that was really tough to do. And when you died, the fact that you couldn't replay the mission, like that I think increased the difficulty for it, because with Dark Souls, you can go through and die, but you get to go back and like redo it basically. So you can kind of effectively learn what you did wrong and slowly like work your way through that area. That's my philosophy. I'm going to pick this game as being more difficult just because of all the modifiers and stuff. I would be interested to play it without the modifiers and see if I have a different opinion. But for now, that's where I stand.
Okay. I think I'm actually going to agree with you. Because damn it, I just had something in my head that made it make sense to me why this game was harder. But the leveling, if we compare the leveling, it was a lot easier also in Dark Souls to level, because all you would have to do is you could kill a bunch of enemies, go to a bonfire, level up. This one, like the people had to survive, then it was random, and you didn't really get a lot for having them level up. So I think I'm gonna say that this game is also harder, but I don't like the fact that it was more RNG based. That's where I'm gonna stand.
It was more difficult, but you couldn't be your skill really had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to put it.
But yes, I would say overall but because of that, it makes it a lot more difficult. Makes it really, really, really hard.
And I'm sure that there are people out there that are skilled enough that they can overcome this kind of thing and they know what to do. But, we didn't know what to do, because I have never played this game before. I barely even ever heard of it before.
I just heard it was a really tough game to play.
Yeah.
That was pretty much all I knew about it going into it. And I knew I actually thought, just because other than that, I hadn't really looked up anything about it. I thought it was like a top-down like arcade shooter kind of game, where they just sent like an absurd amount of enemies at you and you just had to like try and kill them all. Clearly not the case. I was completely off base on that, so I had a completely different like mindset coming into the game. So that was a fun change of pace for me.
Okay, so we're crowning a new toughest game: XCOM Enemy Unknown.
This is actually going to be a really tough one to beat.
Yeah. It's sooner we found a game harder than Dark Souls, sooner than I thought we were going to find, for sure.
And this one, I will say, I think this is going to hold the top spot for a really long time. I think just because of all of the intangibles when you're playing. A lot of games we're to the point now where I feel like a lot of games just don't have that. And it's just not in the gameplay mechanics at all to add in those intangibles.
I have a feeling that we're gonna say that about every single game. Be like, we're gonna find harder ones and be like, this one's gonna be harder to find, harder to beat. And then like 2 weeks later, we'll be like, this one's so much harder, and it's never gonna get beat. And eventually, we're just gonna be like, you know what? We're probably gonna find a harder game than this like next week.
But I would say that until we have a consistent run of that, I'm gonna hold to that statement.
Okay.
I think it's true for now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Who knows? Next week we may be crowning a new champion.
I doubt it. We're doing Lego, or hopefully.
Oh yeah, maybe not.
I don't even think that game
not.
that game is for like children and stuff. So I don't even think it probably doesn't even have like a harder difficulty.
It's not hard. They're just really fun to play.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. Well, so maybe 2 weeks from now we'll find one. But
all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Tune in next week.
We'll be back.
Crisco out. Back.